to you, sir. Welcome back.
Thanks, Chuck.
Before I get to the committee hearing, I want to get to the president's phone call with Vladimir Putin and his explanation of what happened in it and get your reaction on the other side. Let me play it for the viewers.
Did you address the election meddling issues that came up in the Mueller report with Mr. Putin today?
We discussed it. He actually sort of smiled when he said something to the effect that it started off as a mountain and it ended up being a mouse. But he knew that because he knew there was no collusion.
Did you ask him not to meddle
in the next election?
We didn't discuss that. Really, we didn't discuss it.
What kind of lost opportunity did the president have there in trying to sort of, there is a part of the Mueller report that everybody agrees with, which is that Russia had a systematic attempt to interfere in our democracy. The president is not taking that seriously with Vladimir Putin. Does that concern you?
Well, I wasn't privy to the conversation, but I hope what the president did was talk to the head of Russia about interference in our elections. I mean, Russia's been doing it, and the former Soviet Union has been doing it for 60 years, but they've stepped it up, Chuck. And one of the things that's been lost in the Mueller report is how aggressive Russia was in trying to interfere with our democracy. Look, Russia is no longer the Soviet Union. Their economy is smaller than New York State. They've got good spies. They've got nuclear weapons, and they know how to. They're good at cyber terrorism, and we've got to check them, and we've got to tell them we're not going to tolerate it. And if they keep doing it, we're just going to further add sanctions. And I'm hoping that's what the president did.
You say hope. But if he had said that, wouldn't he have shared that with the American people? Instead, he shared the fact that Vladimir Putin said, see, it was not a mountain, it's a molehill. That didn't sound like a president.
Well, it was a mountain.
And it didn't sound like a president who told him, don't stop interfering in our elections.
It was a mountain, and I wasn't privy to the whole conversation. You'll have to ask the president about that one.
All right, let me move to the hearing itself. After the hearing, you and I talked about calling up Bob Mueller to testify. You were open to it. Senator Graham had said no. Then he sent this letter to Bob Mueller. Should this be interpreted as an invitation to Bob Mueller to come testify before your committee?
Yes, and let me put this in context. I've been very supportive of the Mueller investigation. Never met the man, but by all accounts, he's a good, competent, decent man. We have his report. You can debate the rhetoric or the discussion in it, or the spin or whatever you want to call it. But the conclusion is no indictment for collusion, no indictment for conspiracy, no indictment for obstruction of justice. Now, I think many of my Democratic friends have accepted that. Some haven't. Many of my Democratic friends thought that Mueller was going to indict the president. And so the Mueller report was kind of like a hair on their biscuit. And now they don't know what to do, so they're attacking Bill Barr. And my feeling about it is it's time to move on. I understand that Washington is not the big rock candy mountain and that politics is in everybody's blood, but I think we ought to spend a little bit of our time talking about the next generation as opposed to the next election. If I could make one other point, this business of the dispute between the White House and the House is dangerous to America's institutions. Because if they all go to court, they need to work it out. If they all go to court and it becomes a zero-sum game, one or two things is going to happen. Trump's going to win, and that's going to undermine Congress's oversight ability. Or Congress is going to win, the House is going to win, and then all of a sudden the new standard is that the House or the Senate can ask a president or a presidential nominee anything they want to about their personal life, whether it's relevant to being president or not.
So what's the compromise?
I think that's a dangerous precedent.
So what's the compromise? Should the White House cooperate more?
Well, I think the White House and the House leadership ought to sit down and say, okay, you want this, we'll give you that. Why do you want this? I don't think the House is in completely good faith. Let me give you an example. When the Ways and Means chairman said he wanted Trump's tax returns, he said the reason I want his returns is because it'll help me evaluate how good a job the IRS is doing in auditing. Now, give me a break, Chuck. I mean, if you believe that, you'll never own your own home. Nobody believes that. I mean, he's in total bad faith. The president doesn't have to turn over his tax returns. Would I do it if I were running for president? Yeah, but there's no law that says he has to.
Let me go on to the issue of foreign interference. Should it be a crime to use stolen material if it comes from a foreign adversary of the United States? Should that be a crime? Because it's not. Basically, if you read the Mueller report, our laws are blurry on this.
Mm-hmm.
So should it be a crime? Should you guys be passing this? Should it be a crime to use stolen material from a foreign adversary in a campaign?
Well, if you do make that a crime, you've still got to show intent. You've got to show mens rea. You know, when the Russians spy on you, or the Chinese or the North Koreans, they don't come into your office and say, hey, we're from Russia or China or North Korea, and let me talk to you. I mean, they're very clever. So if you're going to pass a law, you've got to be able you've got to require criminal intent.
But so you don't think there should be some safeguard in here that way? What does that look like then? If
you're telling me, should it be improper or even a crime, presuming you could show mens rea, for me to use in a Senate race material offered by China or North Korea or Argentina, for that matter, or Venezuela, yeah, I'm willing to look at that. But you've got to show intent.
And do you think that the Trump campaign has yet, and the Republican Party as a whole, has yet to pledge not to use stolen material? Should they?
Well, I'll pledge I won't use stolen material, but I've got to know it's stolen material. If somebody sends me information and I don't know it's coming from
so Rudy
a foreign
Giuliani is wrong. Rudy Giuliani
then I don't
is
have
wrong.
the mens rea.
Rudy Giuliani is wrong when he says there's nothing wrong with using stolen material from the Russians.
I don't know whether he's wrong or right. I don't know what the law is. You're asking me, should we have a law? Frankly, I haven't researched, Chuck. I'm not trying to dodge your question. I just don't know.
But you don't ethically, should that be wrong?
Well, if you're asking me, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to use stolen material from Russia or China. I don't know anybody who would. But the point is, you've got to know it's stolen.
Okay.
And generally, when they send you this stuff in a campaign, if Russia is, to my knowledge, Russia's never sent me anything in a campaign. But if they did, I know they're not morons. They're not jellyheads. They're not going to walk in and say, "Hi, I'm from Russia. I've got some information for you."
And before I go, I want to ask you about North Korea. It does appear as if Kim Jong-un launched these rockets as an attempt to restart negotiations with the United States. If President Trump concedes to more negotiations based on that, is that the wrong premise to do? That Kim Jong-un, should he be punished for this first instead of rewarded with more talks?
Well, I want to keep talking with Kim Jong-un. I think
you think the president's being played?
Respect. No. Well, I don't know. I mean, he could be. I don't know. The only person who knows that is Kim Jong-un. We can all speculate, but I would much rather have us talking with Kim Jong-un than firing missiles at each other. Now, at some point, we're going to get down to it. It's going to be, what are you going to give up and what are we going to give up? I assume the president's working on that. But in the meantime, I think those sanctions are biting, and I think they're hurting North Korea very hard. And if we can work out a trade deal with China and get China to be more cooperative, we can bring Kim to his knees. What I hate is having to hurt the people of North Korea while we're hurting the knucklehead they've got for their president, but that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. Anyway, Senator John Kennedy, Republican from Louisiana, always appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your views. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chuck.
When we